Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. This is going to the TAMA and chart analysis for March 14th, 2022. Now, if you actually look at what we actually have now, you basically have the prices, just like I predicted last time, essentially kind of coiling up around the $39,000 mark. This is the graph, as you can see, from about February 25th, 26th onward. You can see we have a big bump right here, a smaller bump, and even a smaller bump. And usually, you're saying like, well, this is lower highs. That does mean it's going down, but that's not actually the case right now because the lows have actually been slightly coming up. So we are definitely coiling up. We're definitely coiling up at this kind of like junction right here. So the lows really aren't getting any lower. In fact, they're getting slightly higher, and it is coiling around this $39,000 mark. Now, why that is because we have a big event in Russia that no one really knows how it's going to turn out. But overall, the market isn't actually all that bad. We've weathered the storm. We've actually weathered the storm. Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians are buying. The EU did not ban POW mining of unenvironmentally friendly terms, and we actually have more adoption in cities like Austin than everywhere else. So fundamentally, the adoption news for Bitcoin is very strong. It's just that the war is basically introducing uncertainty. And the thing is, if you actually look at oil right now, which actually drives a lot of prices, oil is actually not that bad right now. I mean, it was down yesterday, and it continues to be down a little bit today. It was down $4.79 today to about $102.11 for Brent. Now, we were at a maximum of like $123 on Brent, so we're almost down 20% from our maximum. Yes, gas prices are still very high. That's true, and there's a lot of uncertainty in Russia, but it actually seems like that gas prices are actually hitting kind of a bottom, hitting kind of a top, and should actually bounce back just slightly sooner or later. So the energy thing shouldn't really worry people as much. But people still know that we are in a war, and we're not in a war, but Russia and Ukraine has a war going on, and as long as there's actually a war going on over there, things are going to be very tenuous over here. This week also has the Fed doing the interest rate thing. Now, it's almost certain that they'll raise interest rates 25 basis points, but that's already priced in. I think what everyone is looking at is if they'll give indication of what they'll actually do in May, because we don't really know whether they're going to raise it 50 basis points in May or just 25. Some of the hawkish reporters are saying 7 rises per year in terms of interest rate. Many others, including myself, are seeing maybe 3 or 4. So we'll have to see how that rounds out. And basically, the war gives us a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of uncertainty is always bad for markets as a whole. So that's actually what's keeping crypto in check. If you look at the 1 month graph, you can see that basically in the last, since the end of February, we've been pretty much flat. Yes, there's been a big hump and then a smaller hump, and then there hasn't been really too many humps at all. But like I said, the bottoms really aren't getting any lower. It's just that we've basically been evening out. And on the longer graph trend, we've essentially been evening out since late January. You can see since late January, our lows have actually been getting higher. Now our highs really haven't been getting any higher, but since late January, our highs have basically maintained. Our highs have actually maintained pace. So if you actually look at this graph, there isn't really that much of a formation since late January. It's basically like uncertainty, and we were actually about to get out of the uncertainty back in mid-February until the war news hit, and then everything went back to uncertainty. But even the news of a war essentially has not made crypto dip all that much. And unless the war goes nuclear, I don't really expect it to actually dip that much. I expect us to actually coil and make 1 or 2 moves up or downward in the next maybe month or two. And then afterwards, I do think we'll actually go upward, because by that time, the war should actually be wrapping up, or the war should be wrapping up and people should be going back a little bit to normal things. Now, the one thing that can throw a wrench into this plan is actually China. Now, Russia has actually asked China for help, And if China actually agrees to help Russia and the world sanctions China, then we're going to have a big, big dip. And by the ways, that is the Black Swan event that a lot of you people hoping for 20K are actually looking for. That the world starts imposing severe sanctions on China like they do on Russia and collapses the Chinese economy, which will screw everyone else as well. So if that happens, we are going much, much lower. That is the major Black Swan event that could actually happen. The Russian war was the first one, but that could be a second one where China attaches itself to Russia, and then everyone sanctions China as well. Russia has put China in a hard spot, but Xi Jinping should actually just say no for sending aid and save his country's own economy. So right now, as you can see, we're in almost like a 2-month lull right here. And actually, if you look at the 1-year graph, we were actually in about around a 2-month lull back in May of last year as well. So this lull has been almost as long. It's not been quite as dramatic as May of last year, but if you actually count the drop from November, it is actually quite dramatic. And in fact, if you actually look at a longer cycle, essentially like the drop from like April to July of last year, or basically April to August of last year, is pretty much similar to the drop from November to right now of this year. So if you actually look at it right now, this is 2017. If you look at this, this cycle is nothing like last cycle, because last cycle had one big hump. This cycle has like basically 2 humps that are very similar to each other. The second hump is just slightly greater than the first. And hopefully, what I'm hoping is like we will have like a series of these humps rather than like a giant slide downward again and then going back up later. Because if we have a kind of like a slide downward, I would guess like this would actually be the slide. It would actually slide to about 30,000 again, and then we would actually just be kind of like in an impasse for the next 3 or 4 years. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it's more like this hump, then another hump, because then we'll go to like 75, 80,000 on the next hump before coming down to about 40,000. That's kind of like what I'm seeing right now. As the pattern. I don't really believe in the extended cycle. I don't really believe in the 4-year cycle anymore, but I do believe in like smaller 6-month cycles, which is what the last two have actually been. And I'm hopefully looking for a rise back up in like maybe April or May after this whole situation is over. But until the situation gets over, it's going to be very hard to see the crypto market move in any other way. If you actually look at the moving averages, the exponential moving average and the simple moving average, they're both on sell, but we're getting very close to the 10 exponential and the 10 simple moving average. All the oscillators are pretty much neutral, so there's actually not much to be said over there. The commodity channel index is neutral. Stochastic is getting to be oversold. RSI is neutral. I actually do think we might crawl a little bit closer to 40,000 or maybe 41,000 before dumping back down soon. But I really wouldn't buy right now. It is like a little too volatile. But if I had to bet, I would say like we would breach 40,000 just by a little bit before coming back down to about 37,000. That's how I see it right now. But right now, like I am very, very neutral going in. I do think there's some big events coming. The Fed interest rate thing, I think I'm more bearish about it than bullish about it because the Fed seems to be a little bit more hawkish. So I would actually say like it's still a sell for me right now on crypto. On the short term, because the Fed meeting will actually be this week. Weekly wise, I'm not really sure what the Fed will do, but I'm kind of like similar to the daily. I am also like slightly on the sell side for the weekly, because if they determine that they're going to do something very, very drastic in May, that will actually affect markets right now. We just can't really tell. And of course, all the oscillators are neutral, so there's nothing to actually look at there. We're basically negative from 10 all the way down to 50. So realistically, for like the year over year, we are very, very much negative. And really, I can't really say anyone should buy right now, because if the Fed actually determines that they're going to go hawkish all the way into May and July, we could see quite a bit more dumping from the market. And plus, the Chinese Black Swan event hangs over us. So if we bring it over the monthly and more of a longer term, I still wouldn't buy right now because of that. And the fact that the Fed could actually just stay to the hawkish interest rate rises. So right now, that's what I'm looking at in terms of scenario. And I really don't like the scenarios I'm actually being presented with. So chart-wise, I do think we should stay around 39,000 for a couple more weeks. But longer term-wise, I still wouldn't be buying just yet until I know what the Fed actually says after the meeting this week. Because if they remain hawkish, I still think we're going down. And I think like China is going to give an answer in the next couple of weeks, or you'll see unexplicit answer that everyone will be able to interpret. Because if those sanctions actually happen, we're definitely going down, and that's another black swan event. So right now, I'm still more on the sell side than the buy side, and both on the short and long term. Short because of Fed, long term because of the whole China situation. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.